all over the table. Anyway.
Oh, and the judge is off to a roaring start already. Anyway.
It's been that kind of day.
It's been that kind of day. That's right.
Yes. So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to One Hit Wonderful. This is the show where us three, myself, Jonathan Phipps, that lady right there, Renée Yaworsky, and that man right there, Judge Stern, will have a guest, a musical or poetic guest on the show. And we've got the thing.
I forgot about that.
Yes,
I forgot.
Every time.
I forget every time.
Be on and have their songs in the spotlight. Let Judge Stern give you fright, because Renee will keep them in line. Wander into One Hit Wonderful, so wonderful because it's hosted by Jonathan Phipps.
That's my favorite part. It's hosted by Jonathan Phipps.
Oh my God!
That is my favorite
here's what
part.
I think,
yes,
Renée.
yes.
I think
Don't let the boys' head swell.
I think Renée has it in for me, because when
I
I'm
do.
doing these intros and she's just like, I'm getting bored of this. Let's just play the theme in the middle of what
Let's
he's
just play
saying.
this just randomly. Let's
You
forget all this
forgot
other
the
stuff.
main theme, Jonathan.
That's true.
So I don't have to write that note down.
So
we have to
anyway,
introduce Judge Stern.
what
Judge
I was
Stern here.
Yes, Judge Stern
He's going
is
to be
here.
grading the show from the
Yes.
green room. He notates everything. And then at the end we bring him up and he tells us how well we did, how bad we did. So it keeps us on task.
In case you've never
Keep
watched the show before.
Yes.
For our new viewers, I assume that there were new viewers.
Yes,
I hope
we have new viewers every week.
Yeah, every week we get new people. There you go.
Yes.
Right.
And we get nude people too. I assume there's nude people and new people.
Nude
Damn
people.
it, Renée, you had to take it there. Mind out of the gutter. Anyway,
It's a bodice ripper. It's a bodice
I think
ripper.
she just broke a law there, but I'm not sure.
I think Renée
I
has
just broke
been
a law. The
drinking
judge will tell me I
again.
broke a law. Okay.
The-
All
the
right. We are
nude-
live on
nude
Tardan
host-
Media Network.
Nude statute for talk shows.
All right. So the three of us is here after a week away. And we have the privilege of having one of the best piano players I have heard in a very, very long time joining us to play one of his pieces. We will break down said piece, and then we will look back into this man's musical history, how he got steered into playing the piano, who his influences are, the projects he's had a hand in. What else can I say? Ladies and gentlemen, he is here. And he is Mr. Travis Lohmann.
Hi,
There we go.
I've been looking forward to this show.
Thanks
Yeah.
so much, guys.
Thank you for
I
coming
was back there jamming to your theme song there in the back. Yeah.
Wow.
And I was like, ooh. Yeah.
I had a feeling he was going to do that.
I love it. I love it. I love it. And you know, Diane Call, she sometimes
Yes.
co-hosts the show. She wrote and performed that song. She's going to get such a kick out of seeing that, Travis.
Oh,
That's
yes.
so cool. I love that. I saw you bob in
Yeah.
your head, when we were
Yeah,
playing.
yeah.
It's catchy. It's really catchy.
Mm-hmm. So, Travis, if you
John,
have a
thanks so
song
much.
on your heart,
Yeah.
lay it on us.
Sure thing. So what I decided to play for y'all today is the first selection out of my Sonic Bouquet Contemporary Piano Solos collection, which came out earlier last year, rather late last year in December. So this is the first one that was written around back in summer 2016, I want to say. So I'm going to go ahead and play that for you, and then we'll discuss it afterwards. So I hope you all enjoy.
So that was the first piece for Sonic Bouquet.
Okay, yeah, yeah.
So what went into that piece? Like, did you have like a particular, I don't know, a particular scene in mind when you were writing that piece, or was it just
So
something that came to you off the top of your head?
Yeah, it's interesting. So I like working a lot with like words and meter and rhythm and trying to fit things in. And it just so happened one day when I was literally walking and that rhythm of picking lilacs in the spring, that phrase just kind of popped in my mind, which fits with that.
Yeah.
And so I kind of put the two together and I was like, you know what? Why don't we give it a shot? So that's kind of how that literally popped up.
Wow. So let's start from the beginning. Where in this wide world of ours were you born?
So I was born and raised here in Las Vegas, Nevada, and attended schools here. I also did orchestra and played violin during that time too, throughout my middle school and high school careers. So a very, very Vegas-centric person.
Aha. Was the piano your first love musically, or was it something that came later?
I think that it was something I grew into, definitely. I didn't take an immediate liking to it at first. I started playing when I was 4. I have some memories of it as a child, but it wasn't like it was like this all-encompassing interest for me at the start. I think I grew into it really when I was around 12, 13 years old in the late middle school years. I started to really be like, you know what? Maybe this could actually do something, or maybe I could go somewhere with it, you know?
Yeah. Would you mind playing another piece for us?
You know what? I think I want to just kind of go Johnny on the spot here, if y'all don't mind, and just
go for it,
make up
man.
something. So let's give this a go.
I love
and
improv
I hope
here.
you all enjoy this untitled piece number 1, shall we call it? All right, here we go.
Awesome stuff
Thanks
right
so
there,
much, man.
Travis.
Thank you, buddy.
How would you say, like, coming up with improv pieces, how would you say that would be more difficult on piano than, say, something like guitar or violin?
I mean, I think just the idea of improv in general, especially when you're dealing with an instrument that has both the melody and the harmony that you have to take care of simultaneously, you kind of have to think of both parts at the same time, but at the same time, not get too bogged down with, like, where are you going to go? How are you going to get there? And all that. So you kind of have to separate your mind into those two halves in a way. I guess the same could be said about guitar to a degree. Although, I mean, just in terms of, like, the way that we voice certain things or the way that our chords are spread specifically, we're kind of tackling a little bit more, range in that sense.
So, did you go to college? And if so, how did your music progress when you got to there?
Yeah, so I attended the University of Nevada, Las Vegas, and I started as a classical piano major there. I did that for about a semester before I realized that probably wasn't going to be the path for me, which I realized really early on, like maybe 3 months in. And then I switched into jazz studies at our university as well, which is a phenomenal program. And that changed my whole sonic outlook and just artistic outlook on music as well, where everything kind of just started to open up a lot more. And it's really hard to describe what happened. It's just that, certain colors or certain harmonies or certain ideas kind of started to jump to life. And I'd realized that perhaps I'd been hearing that all this time when I was younger in, more modern classical music, but I couldn't really put, like, a name or a figure or a number or something to quantify or to analyze what it is, So it was a wonderful journey.
You mentioned switching from classical to jazz.
Yeah.
How much did the sensibilities from classical to jazz change, or did they really change much at all?
As my jazz professor, David Loeb, he actually plays for the Family Guy in the Cleveland Show. That's his his side job from teaching. Well, I shouldn't even say side job. It's his other job besides teaching at the university. As he told me when I first came to him, he's like, it's going to be kind of like learning how to crawl and then, like, you're going to have to learn how to walk again, sort of thing. And I was like, oh God, when I first came in, because, I came in and I auditioned with him for some classical music. I showed him some pieces I was working on. Oh yeah, that's all good. Okay, we're going to get you started on some jazz stuff. By the way, it's going to be like, learning to crawl again and you're going to have to walk. I was like, oh dear God. And he wasn't wrong. And he wasn't wrong at all. Some of my favorite jazz pianists have quotes like, the thing about improvisation is, like, it's spontaneous composition in real time. And you don't really have any way to erase any of your errors or mistakes, quote unquote errors, let's say, there's no way to really undo that. So you kind of have to be in the spot and be in the moment and make it happen, So it really pushes you to be on your toes in a different way than classical music to a degree.
Who is some of your jazz influences?
So some of my modern jazz influences for piano specifically would be Brad Mehldau, Keith Jarrett. Those are, like, two of my big favorites. Hiromi Yuhara, she recently played for the Olympics opening ceremony. She's one of my favorites as well. If you're looking back a little bit further, people like Chick Corea as well. A lot of the modern sounding jazz pianists, especially with their voicings, the way that they voice out their chords, their compositional ideas. Keith Jarrett specifically, he, if you've ever listened to any of his more recent albums, it was not uncommon for him to do completely improvised concerts that were like an hour and a half long. So he would go in with no preconceived idea of what he was going to do and just go.
Wow.
That's like, to me, that's like staggering in terms of the concentration that you need to be able to pull that off, let alone keep that going for an hour.
My gosh. No, if anybody could do that, get on stage and just do an hour and a half of just straight improv stuff, it'd be you.
Oh, thank you. I'm still working to get to that level because Keith is one of my biggest, oh my gosh, like one of my biggest idols. and just a lot of it, and what I learned early on, especially with studying jazz, we like to say that it's an oral art form because it derives from American history and it's passed down from generation to generation in that sense where not everything was notated out by hand. It's just not the way we did things. It was, you learn a tune by ear and that's how you get it down and you pass that down. And a lot of the study of jazz comes from listening to your records, or in this case, CDs or whatnot, and figuring out what they're doing.
Mm-hmm. So if Renee is here, I'll have her come on because I know she has questions as well.
Yeah,
because she is the one that turned me on to you. She tagged me in one of your concerts in SDF. God, I don't know, probably 2-3 months ago. And I was just floored by what I was hearing.
Thank you.
Just fingers waltzing across the keys.
I gotta say, the setup that you're looking at right now with how I usually have it is a dual cam setup and whatnot. This setup has been going it's probably been a year and a half in the making of just trying to get it right. And I think it's paid off big time because I'm really satisfied with when you see the SDF concerts, you get multiple perspectives. It's just it's starting to all fall into place.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we have a couple of questions from the audience. Sandy really wants to know, have you ever lived in New York City? Because she gets a New York City vibe from you.
I have not lived in New York City, but it's definitely a place that I do want to visit. And I just really want to just go in there and just take in the culture, take in the music and the sights. So that's definitely on my list.
Yeah, well, of course, you do have this New York vibe. So when you go up there, you're definitely going to fit in. You have that vibe. Sandy said that it seemed like she was in Central Park just walking by and you're one of these performers. You get that feeling. And then Bob Ross wanted to know if you're familiar with Bob Thompson of Mountain Stage fame on NPR.
That name is not ringing a bell, and I do listen to NPR a lot for the classical and the jazz side of things. But I will have to check that out, definitely.
Okay. Go JP.
Go.
Just curious, talking about you're listening to a lot of classical stuff on NPR. Are you familiar with Peter Van de Graaff at all? The classical show that he hosts overnight. Oh, I love him.
Yeah, definitely.
When I was a kid, I would listen to him on WVTF out of Roanoke, and the music he would play would just lull me to sleep every night. I loved it.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I wanted, Travis, if you could update people on your composing, and you're always working on compositions, cinematic. Are you into movies? What is it about film and music that really strikes you and grabs you? Because you're passionate about that, and you've worked on several projects even recently.
Yeah. So a couple things. I finally released my debut album, which is coming out officially. It will drop in December. The Wanderer Suite took about 3 to 4 years to fully conceptualize and get written down. It's like all of my love for action music, Japanese anime music, video game music, and movie soundtracks kind of all rolled into one. It was my take on if I was to try to do something like that. So that's finally dropping. A couple other projects. I'm always doing music for assorted television shows, and I've got some short film projects that are coming up in the winter that I'll be working on. Started another collection of piano solos, so I got to get on that. I got 4 of them done so far, but I got to do 4 more, so that's no pressure there at all. So God. So in a nutshell, now what do I love about film and music? Oh man, so I gotta say, my first experience with film music was not Star Wars. It was not like any sort of big blockbuster film. It was this one. Recognize it?
Sounds familiar, but I can't place it.
Somewhere in my memory from Home Alone.
Oh, yes.
Go.
Wow. Now, when we played our theme song when we came in, One Hit Wonderful by Diane Call, and instantly you could replicate it. Is that something that's a unique skill? Not every musician can do that. How did you learn that skill, or were you born? Is that just a natural talent? You can replicate anything if you hear it.
For the most part, that seems to be the case. There's certain degrees of what we call absolute pitch, and so it's like if you hear a note like a F sharp like that, know that it's a F sharp, or a D, or B flat. Oh, sorry, that one was off. But so I'll know within a good short amount of time, what I'm dealing with chords wise and such. I did take ear training in college. That was my first experience with that. And ear training class is like when you sit down with an instructor, they'll give you like melodies to sing out of a book. Yes, we had to do singing even if we weren't a singer. And it'd be like, okay, you got like a minute and a half to look over this melody, sing it, go. And you'd have to kind of figure it out by ear. And that's when my ear opened up a lot, to the point where it's like I started to hear things like a lot more. So I have a suspicion that I might have had like absolute pitch, but it was dormant for a long time until it got awakened in college, is my best bet. And one of the stories I like to tell, one of our ear training instructors, Dr. Jocelyn Jensen, she came by one time and she put her bag on the table and she brushed by the piano, and her elbow hit like this note on the piano, and I'm sitting back at the table and I was like, is that a B? And she's like, yeah, it is. And I was like, and from that point forward, I knew that things were going to be okay.
Oh, wow. Wow. But you couldn't do that as a kid. But you couldn't do that as a kid.
I never even tried or thought about it as a kid. I mean, like it never even crossed my mind. But when college hit, and like I started taking these classes, and like the turning point for me was that moment when she's just like, pop, and her elbow just brushes off. I was like, it's a B right there. And she's like, yeah, it is. And I was like, oh, sweet. And so like the next part of the of the test would be like, she'll sit down at the piano and she'll play a melody and she'll come and say, and I'll be like, okay, A, F sharp G, A, B, A, G, A, G, F sharp E, F sharp D, E, D. Okay, cool, done. Write it out.
Wow.
So that is like magic. That is like magic.
But
yes,
to be yeah. Oh, sorry. Go, JP. Yeah.
All right. Joe Willie wants to know if you listen to some of the older pianists like Monk, Bill Evans, Oscar Peterson, etc.
Okay, so Oscar Peterson is terrifying to me because he's like the type of person who's like, he is. I mean, it's like, so him and Art Tatum, it's like, you listen to one person playing, but it sounds like two people are playing. Yes, I do listen. Yeah, and I was like, oh, dear God. Bill Evans, yeah. Bill Evans is one of my absolute favorites, though. Bill Evans is absolutely one of my favorites because of just the way that he voices things. His compositions, too, are like really, really just wonderfully thought out. If you've ever listened to the Miles Davis album, Kinda Blue, which is like one of the top selling jazz albums of all time. But the thing is like some of those compositions for the longest time were attributed to Miles Davis when they weren't Miles Davis's. It was Bill Evans that wrote the piece. So like Blue and Green, for example, is one of them. I was like, oh, dude. I forgot where I was going with this. It was ear training. I forget where I was. I'll come back to it, I'm sure. But yeah.
I want to know what Travis Lohmann does when he's not doing music, because how many hours a day are you consumed with your music? Because I see you up at like 1 a.m. doing your music. I see you up early, then you teach, right?
Yes.
So you're always doing music. How many hours a day are you doing music? And then the hours that you're not doing music, what are you doing?
Okay, so let me see. Hours a day. The hours a day that I'm doing music, I don't know. It's not something I've really thought about. Like maybe let's just go safely like 8 to 10. Let's say that 8 to 10 ish. If I'm not doing it, I'm thinking about it. And then the other times when I'm not, I do like to relax and enjoy movies. In the summertime, I like to go swimming, and I try to get out and get exercising. And just like I have a morning routine and an evening routine that I try to do every single day, just because it's important, especially for musicians when you're like just stagnant, and it's a very solitary lifestyle to be doing composition all the time. So it's like you do need to get out and do stuff. Oh, I remember what I was going to say. Renee's going to like this. Yeah. Sometimes it gets to the point where like, I'll hear like, for example, like the school bell rings at an F sharp. They're like, oh, F sharp, there's the school bell. Or like, oh, there's the custodian card. It's like A flat right there. Oh God. And so I have to kind of like,
If
Or
your
like-
if
yeah.
if your life was a Disney movie, a cartoon, you would see different notes being replicated visually by all the noises as you're walking down the street. You're saying F sharp and
Yes,
G.
yes, literally, they'd be popping up like thought bubbles. I'd be like, oh gosh, yes.
You mentioned when you were listening to Oscar Peterson how it sounded like it was two people playing at the same time.
Yeah.
I can relate a lot to that. Being a big, fingerstyle guitar fan, hearing all that. Is there any other piano players in that realm for you, or you just hear and you think that has to be 2 or 3 people playing? Has to be.
I mean, really, for me, Art Tatum and Oscar Peterson really defined that style. And even now, when you go back and listen to the recordings, it's just like, and the crazier part is Art Tatum was blind. So,
yeah,
I
didn't know that.
I was like, what is going on? There's a famous quote where Vladimir Horowitz, the classical pianist, was like, oh, if Art Tatum became a classical pianist, I'd quit. Yeah, probably. I was like, whoa, man.
Wow, I did not know Tatum was blind. I knew George Shearing was blind, but I didn't know that.
Yeah, George has some beautiful colors with his playing. The way that he voices chords and stuff like this, just really, really, really awesome. Yeah. You mentioned finger. Sorry. Oh my gosh, I feel bad. I'm interrupting here, but
no. What's the finger?
Yeah,
go on.
You mentioned fingerstyle guitarist. Are you familiar with Tommy Emmanuel?
Oh yes, I love Tommy Emmanuel so much.
Yeah. Oh man. So just side note, and it's a little weird, but I remember JP and I were talking off to the sides. Some of his pals think of the guitar and approach it like a piano, and it's weird because I like a lot of metal bands and metal guitarists, and I sometimes approach the piano in the same way a guitarist would approach riffs. That's really fun for me. So it's kind of this backwards reverse way of thinking,
Holy cow.
You are a music teacher, right? You teach children and you call them scholars. Why do you call them scholars?
I feel like it just kind of gives that more higher sense of purpose, versus just the generic term of student. If you want people to aspire to something, giving them kind of that extra boost and kind of giving it that way helps,
Right. Yes. Yeah. You take your job very seriously. What are some of the things that draw you about being a teacher? I mean, do you have teachers that when you were growing up really made a difference in your life and you're trying to make impact in the next generation? What is your journey?
So on my piano, I always have the photograph of my jazz piano professor, who is Dave Loke here on this side, and then my former middle school piano teacher, Mr. Roger Michelle here, who I attribute these two guys as giving me everything that I have learned in the past, 20-something years, just laying that foundation down. And I think that's what's important for music educators to think about towards the future, is inspiring that next set of musicians and really just kind of giving our younger generation that chance to create music and to really just grow and discover a new art form.
Mm-hmm. Outside of jazz and classical, what other piano players from different genres have influenced you?
So one of my biggest metal bands is Dream Theater, who's one of my favorites. And Dream Theater has gone through a wide lineup of keyboard changes over the years. The current guy that they have is Mr. Jordan Rudess. He's been with them since 97, I want to say. Oh man, the guy is so cool. So a little backstory on Jordan is that he got accepted into Juilliard's pre-college division when he was 6. And the funny story that he'll always tell is his second grade teachers are oh yeah, Jordan's really good at the piano. You guys must be really proud of him and all that. And his mom's we don't have a piano at home. I was what? Through discovering these progressive rock bands like that, I discovered bands like Emerson, Lake and Palmer, Dream Theater's one. ELP for me is just the pinnacle of just keyboard playing.
Yes.
Keith Emerson was one of my big, just huge idols. I wish I was around back in that time to see those concerts. It must have been one hell of a trip.
Here.
I mean, I wish I could have. My first rock concert that I ever went to was a Dream Theater show on my 21st birthday at the Hard Rock, which is no longer here in Vegas anymore. They tore the Hard Rock down for something else. But Dream Theater there, 21 years old. I was like, oh my God, this is like crazy cool to see these guys live. And it's like when they're able to play as well as the album is, I was like, this is great. It's just like perfect, you know? So yeah, them, I'm trying to think who else. Dream Theater's previous keyboardist, Derek Sherinian's another huge one for me. He's just got this crazy like guitar approach to the keyboard with like these really gnarly sounding sounds, and he does like these crazy dive bombs and stuff like that. I was like, oh man, he's kind of like Eddie Van Halen for the keyboard, but it's just like, oh, that is just like, so that's another one for me.
Talking about the rock influence, like you mentioned, it's one of those nights. What's his name? We were just talking about him.
Jordan?
Not Jordan, the other one you were talking about.
Keith Emerson.
Keith Emerson, yes.
Yeah.
So we were talking about Keith Emerson and the rock influence. How about others like, say, Rick Wakeman, Garth Hudson, Pete Townsend, folks like that?
So Rick Wakeman of Yes, definitely. And for those people that know me well, I have a affinity for vinyl records, and I still try to go shopping for them every so often, even though I don't have a record player currently. But when I went garage sale shopping and dumpster diving and all that, I was like, oh man, I got to get like, Rick Wakeman's solo album. I got to get some like, Chick Corea, like the Electric Age stuff. So I would just be stockpiling stuff like that. Just because, it's historic, and it's just like, it's such an organic way of making music back then, I feel, because of the fact that like computer technology wasn't directly influencing the art of creation. It's a weird thing for me to say that, because it's like, it's such an influence now, and yet it's like, it almost, if you let it can kind of take the human factor out of it when you're writing. Like I've noticed it myself where I have to stop myself from pressing like control paste all the time on like, when I'm composing. Cause I don't want it to sound the same. I want it to be different, A
few folks in the audience are wanting you to play another song. So if you have another one on you, lay it on us.
Let's just go for something off the spot and see what we got. And
all right.
What a fantastic audience. So thank you so much. Yeah, let's do this again.
another beautiful piece by you there. Have you ever thought of maybe doing a album just solely of improv?
That definitely has been on my mind, and that's something I would love to get to give a shot. It would be interesting to see, like, all the ideas, if they could be interwoven throughout each track. I think that would be really, really cool. So there's some sort of continuous thread that kind of links one track into another. It's tricky, even just thinking about that as a task. It's like, I can see, like, if I divided it up into like 10 movements and just go. But yeah, it's definitely something.
Wow. So we'll open up the floor to the audience now with their questions. Joe Willie wants to know, have you ever listened to Professor Longhair?
Yes,
I don't know who that is.
Yeah. So Professor Longhair, I actually discovered that through a series of YouTube videos years ago. It's like, but yeah, fantastic piano player and all that. And yes, so it's been a while, but I need to revisit.
You mentioned guitar players in particular, Tommy Emmanuel earlier. Any other like fingerstyle or maybe classical style guitarists that have influenced you and you've took some of their sensibilities to the piano? So
one of the guitarists I learned about maybe 4 years ago was Andy Mckee, and Andy Mckee has like he has like a baritone guitar, which I didn't even know what a baritone guitar was until I looked it up. I was like, how's he getting such a deep sound from that instrument? I was like, what is going on? And then he started doing like the tapping thing and the flipping of the hands and like the way that he voices his chords. Like, this is too much for me. Like, out of one instrument, he's being able to pull all that off. It's crazy. So yeah, he's definitely a huge one for me.
Oh yeah. Anyone else?
I'm trying to think. On the metal side of things, one of my favorite guitarist is Tosin Abazi of Animals as Leaders. And his band is a 3-piece instrumental group, so they don't have any lyrics, but it's all metal-based instrumental stuff. He has some fingerstyle things as well that he does on the electric, but he's got like this crazy technique and like this amazing ability to do like these, I don't even know what to call it. He does these thumps with the thumb, so he gets like this really low like bass tones, so they don't need a bassist. It's just 2 guitarists and a drummer, but he gets these incredibly low pedal tones on the bass. I was like, what? I was like, this is insane. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I had a question in mind and then it left me. Oh, I think
we have a question from the audience.
Thank you for bailing me out because my mind went to static.
Any female pianist or old school blues jazz pianist, but also, but any female pianists that stick out to you?
Any female pianists that stick out to me. So Hiromi Yuhara, she's not an old school one, but she is one of the female jazz pianists that I do look up to a lot. She recently played the closing ceremony. She played the Olympics recently for that. So that was really cool. But let me see who else. Hazel Scott, if we're talking about old school jazz pianists. Marion McPartland, who used to do piano jazz as an NPR series. Marion McPartland was a huge one. I used to listen to that series a ton. So she would not only interview pianists, but she would play duets and stuff with them too. I was like, oh, that's so cool. So those are some that I can think off the top of my head.
I finally came back to what I was wanting to say.
Yeah.
Just going back to guitarists one last time. Are you familiar with Leo Cocky at all?
That name is not ringing a bell, but I should check him out.
I think you'll really appreciate, because he has a lot of that ability to like take those piano sensibilities and translate them to guitar. Check out his album called One Guitar, No Vocals.
Okay.
I think you'll see a lot of that influence in there. There's a particular piece on that album called Too Fast.
Okay.
That's there's a middle section in there that sounds, if you listen to it without a trained ear, you'll think, oh, that's just completely freeform. But if you listen closely and put a metronome to it, it all is synced right in play. That is why I love Leo's. I'm just rambling at this point.
No. Yeah.
I think you'll really like Leo's music.
I wanted to ask Travis, because you spend so much time with children and your scholars and parents, what would you tell parents of children of any age? How can they get their kids into music, and why is music important for the brain development if they don't want to become professional musicians? There's been a lot of research about that and about what music does for you. So what would you tell parents, first of all, how to get their kids involved, and second of all, why it's important to get them involved?
So as far as getting them involved, I mean, especially nowadays with public school programs, you have more often than not more options of music programs that are kind of just built into schools, whether it be choir, whether it be band, whether it be orchestra. Some schools offer piano programs as well. Even just giving those a shot and letting your child explore with that is a great way to start. I mean, obviously, the other route would be, in addition to that, you could take group lessons, or you could do private lessons as well. I think it's important to advocate for music education because, I mean, as the research has continually proven, it's not just you're learning an art form. You're learning, science. You're learning languages. You're learning, physical movement and physical education that comes from this as well. You're learning discipline. You're learning, if we're talking about moralistic qualities, you're learning time management. You're learning prioritization. I mean, these are all things that aren't bad qualities. I mean, I don't think anybody would shun you for having too much of that. These are all good things to develop, and I think it teaches you resilience too, because I mean, as I've told my private students as well for piano, it's a very easy instrument to play. It's a very difficult instrument to master. Any kid can come up here and play the piano. There's no argument for that. But playing it well is a whole other thing that takes discipline and years of study, and it takes resilience on the part of the student to want to really go through that.
Right.
So let's go off. I shouldn't say off the beaten path, but let's go down a little side road here.
Sure.
What is on your playlists right now? What are you listening to?
What am I listening to right now? Okay, hold on. Wait. I'm trying to think of the last albums that I listened to. I went back and revisited the old Fast and the Furious soundtrack. So I was looking at number 7 and number 5. One of my favorite film composers is Theodore Shapiro, who also does music for movies like The Intern and The Change Up. It's like this very melodramatic, comedic type soundtrack type stuff. So I've been listening to a lot of that. What else? I'm trying to think if I've listened to any nice jazz albums as of recent. I can't think of anything off the top of my head. Sometimes I go back and listen to old school video game soundtracks that I haven't listened to in a while. I'm talking like 1990s, 1992 Sega soundtracks and stuff like that. Just to soak my feet in, because I love the nostalgia. And growing up as a kid, I wasn't like a hardcore like video gamer. I think I finally turned the corner on that like 2 years ago. Because better late than never, right? I figured I was never able to do it as a kid. I'm going to do it now. So, and I've just been discovering all these gems of just like music and just like, marveling at the ability of composers back then to be able to create such amazing soundtracks with such limited technology. I was like, how'd you pull that off?
Bob Ross is wanting to know if you are working with other keyboards beyond just the piano.
Yes. Okay. So to answer that question, so my other, which you can't see right now, but my other main workstation is I have an 88 key Korg Triton Extreme that I got back in 2007 or 2009. And that's my main keyboard for using for composition and writing and inputting everything into the computer. So that's all rigged up to my Macintosh, which all feeds into Logic Pro, which is my software of choice for writing music. So I'll always be writing in through that, and everything's all rigged up, ready to go. So whenever I need to, I can just get in, plug in, and play.
What is a band or musician that we might be surprised to find in your playlist?
Ooh, man. Band or musician that these are good questions. I didn't expect these questions. Oh man, no, this is good. Now I have to think about it. No, this is great. Oh, goodness. A band or a musician? Judy Garland.
All right.
Yeah. So she did a Carnegie Hall concert that I only recently discovered years ago, and it's her with the full symphony, and she gets to do like her hits. Oh man, it's great. And just like going back and listening to the recording quality of just how they recorded everything, it's just got that vintage sound and feel. And I was like, oh man, this sounds so good. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. What would you, Renee? You had a question?
Yes, a lot of people are interested in Las Vegas. Why Las Vegas? We know you're from Las Vegas, but what about Las Vegas captivates you? And what about that culture should we know that has to do with Travis Lohmann? What is that connection?
Yeah. So despite what everybody thinks, no, we don't live in casinos, and not all of us live. I mean, because that's like 99% people are like, yeah, so you live in Vegas. So you like must live in a casino of some sort. I was like, that's not our housing. So then the next question is like, so you live near casinos then? And that's also not true. There's also houses away from the casinos. I'm about 30 minutes out, which is kind of nice. But what I like about it, cost of living here is very, very, very manageable, which I'm very, very happy about that. But also, I mean, we do have, wonderful arts communities in the sense of we have a beautiful concert hall, which is the Smith Center here, that does not only classical music, but Broadway musicals, reviews, all sorts of shows. They have fantastic seasons. They're now reopening in light of the whole COVID situation, all that. They're finally getting back on their feet and starting to offer concerts, which I'm so happy with. Thank God. So they're being able to do that. But also we have, First Fridays, which is every Friday of the month downtown. There'll be like an arts festival where street musicians and street artists can come out and show their stuff. So it's just a really, really cool community to hang out with, despite what people might think about the city in general.
Right.
I never would have thought Las Vegas to be that big of like a music and arts hub.
It is, and I hope, and it's gradually gaining some traction. I mean, like the Smith Center just put out their season tickets for the whole Broadway season. For a ton of musicals and stuff. So that's coming out. One of the first concerts I got to see at the Smith Center, which I'm over the moon that I still was able to, was the London Symphony Orchestra came here and played.
Wow.
And I was like, holy God. And I was like, this is the coolest thing. And, I always, every time I go, little known fact, but every time I go to a classical music concert, I always sit up in the balcony. So that way I can just have a bird's eye view to just take everything in. That's just me personally. And I wrote on their Facebook wall the night after, and I was like, guys, it was a fantastic concert. Like, thank you so much, yada, yada, yada. And they got back to me, and I was like, okay, this is even better. They actually take the time to,
Damn, man.
Mm-hmm.
So a few more questions here, then we'll sneak up towards the end of this. What's a guilty pleasure for you musically?
What's a guilty pleasure for me musically?
Yeah.
Or any guilty pleasure. I think that would be fun.
Or any guilty pleasure. I mean, any guilty pleasure for me would be black licorice is one for me, which is weird. I know.
I hate black licorice. I hate it. No,
Same here.
So bad. You're the person who keeps them in production. It's you.
Oh my gosh.
It's so good though. Anyhow, mechanical keyboards.
Mechanical keyboards.
I see where you're coming from for that. My friend Landon, who will be designing logos for Tardan Media, he has one of those on his on his PC at his house, and they're so awesome. But the damn things are so loud. Like if I'm in a chat with him or something like that, it just oh god. But they're cool.
It's the best part of my day. No, but ever since I switched out, because I went through a slew of just the old membrane keyboards with the rubber domes, and they just didn't. I didn't get the feedback that I want. And then I switched over, and I was like, "What on earth is going on? This feels so weird, but it's so cool." But you're right. I'll be having Zoom meetings. Click, 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 click. And they're like, dude, turn that down. I was like, I can't. And it's to the point where I don't hear it. And they're like, turn it down. I was like, turn what down? There's nothing happening.
Renee, do you have any further questions for
I
Travis?
do. Travis
Go for
is
it.
very technologically inclined, so you
Yeah.
enjoy software and technical things. That's really what is the intersection between technology and music and art for you?
That all started when I was in high school, actually. So I went to a magnet school for they had computer science, business, graphics, law, and all sorts of things like that. I was a computer science major, so I took classes in programming and website design. And one day in my 11th grade year, I came into my website class, and someone, I don't know who, because it wasn't me, installed some sort of music software on the school's computer, which wasn't allowed at all. And
Wow.
I didn't know what it was, and I booted it up. And for the next like 9 days, I got nothing done for school at all, except fooling around with that software. And it was the greatest 9 days of my life because that planted the seed in my mind for I was like, whoa, I can actually like make music on a computer. I was like, wait, so like, and I didn't have a MIDI keyboard to play or anything. So I was using my typing keyboard, and I was like, wait, so if I press this key, it makes that no. Wait, if I press this key, it makes that no. That's so cool. So I was like going one by one. It blew my mind, and that started my whole journey down this crazy path, which must be some 10, 11 years in the making of just, technology, music, efficiency is big for me. I mean, there's nothing worse than having your computers crash on you or like you lose all your sounds on a project and you're like, and now I have to try to recreate this by memory. Good luck on that.
Bob Ross wants to know if you ever sat down to a full-fledged church organ.
Okay. Interesting that my second job is church organist at my local church nearby. I've been with them for about 7 years. So I auditioned back in 2014, didn't play the organ at all. I don't consider myself an organist per se, even still now, which is fine. But I auditioned with some piano pieces and stuff, somehow got the job. I don't know how, but that happened. And so we have a beautiful 3-tier pipe organ that I get to use every single Sunday, which is awesome.
Oh, that's awesome. That's so cool.
Oh, yeah.
Jonathan, do we have time for another song, or should we bring up the judge, or how do you want to?
I say we bring up the judge and have Travis close us out with a song.
All right, there you go.
So the judge is here, muted.
Unmute yourself.
All right.
Unmute yourself, Judge.
Yes. I just didn't want to. My other phone was dinging.
Ooh, that's not good.
Didn't want that to interrupt Travis in the show. So, how delightful. Let me start with this. How delightful to have a guest who plays such lovely melodies.
Thank you, man.
Yes, putting melodies to phrases is amazing.
Thank you.
And colors with melodies. It's wonderful. A piano virtuoso born in Vegas. That sounds familiar. Do you have a brother named George by any chance? I am so glad you all got that joke. I thought maybe it was too old. Anyway, you are a very focused interviewee. This is the first time I've given this note to a guest. It's scarily so. You were very on the ball as far as answering questions as an interviewee. This, of course, came 2 pages before Jonathan stumped you with one later in the show. Well, we have a note on that later. This comes from your years of knowledge and passion for what you do, obviously. Who are your main influences in TV and motion? Oh, this is one of those many questions that I wanted to ask you, and then Phipps or Renee shanghaied it from me. You were not influenced by Star Wars, but you were influenced by another John Williams tune from Home Alone.
Right.
Interesting.
Right. Yeah. Yep.
Jonathan and Renee failed to name that tune. The Name That Tune segment of this show. I can name that tune in 40. No, I can't. It was a slightly obscure tune, though.
Yes, it was.
It wasn't Raiders of the Lost Ark.
No.
The Indiana Jones theme or Flying from E.T. Was it?
No.
There it is.
Right. So it wasn't that.
Or Flying from E.T.
Right.
Jonathan mentioned several piano greats. I want to throw out a couple. Dave Brubeck.
Yes.
John Barry. and Dave Grusin.
Yes.
Dave Grusin wrote the music for The Firm, the movie The Firm. So yeah.
Yes, he was a jazz guy, but
Yes.
he would do a movie from time to time. He actually did the soundtrack for the Goonies.
Nice. Okay.
Wow.
Cool. Yeah.
Yes, if you heard the Fratelli Chase of the Goonies theme, you'll go, oh yeah, that's Dave Grusin.
Okay. Cool.
If they offered you, I should ask this at the very end, but if they offered you a gig performing in Vegas, would you take it?
Yeah.
All right.
Who wouldn't, right?
Right? Yeah.
I'm going to have to look up Professor Longhair
Right?
on your recommendation.
I'm
Baritone
gonna-
guitar. I learned something new tonight.
Right? Yeah.
And
I want
thing
to look
about
that up.
I'm sorry.
the thing about baritone guitar, this is just a bit of geekery. You can toss this aside later.
Sure.
But a normal string scale on a guitar is 25 inches, whereas baritone guitar is, I believe, 27 and a half or 28 inches. It's a beautiful sound, but I've heard some say it's like taking your bicycle and making it a block long. So it's not for everybody, but I love it.
Right. Yeah.
Amazing facts that you keep tucked away. Renee, you were going to say something.
I don't remember anymore. So we just gotta keep moving. It wasn't that important.
I wanted to say, awesome question, Renee, about empowering the tiger parents. Where do they go?
Yes.
I've got a note here to look up Theodore Shapiro as well. I love soundtracks.
Yeah.
Macintosh user. Duly noted. Duly noted.
But I'm currently on my Windows laptop right now, so
Oh.
that's a whole
Blasphemy.
Right.
He's going to the other side. He's going to the dark side.
Travis yells out, "These are good questions. This is great." Translation: Damn you, Jonathan. Beautiful scenery close by in Las Vegas. Again, it's not just casinos. Not every neighborhood, not every suburb has a Wayne Newton. There is the Grand Canyon, Hoover Dam, lots of wonderful things to see out there. Those colored mountains. Sneak up towards the end, Jonathan said. We're going to sneak up towards the end. Translation: Oh yeah, then we'll let the judge come out.
Oh no.
Wow. Licorice vote. Throw out the black jelly beans, I say. There is a reason why Twizzlers only makes the red kind. All right. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. That was my notes for the show.
All right,
Thank
ladies
you,
and gentlemen,
Judge.
thank you.
Thank you, man.
Thank you, Judge.
Wonderful
Thank
guest.
you, Renee. Thank you, Travis. Thank you, everybody,
Thank
for
you, man.
showing
Can he
up
play
and
us
showing
out?
love.
I will
Travis,
play y'all
play us
out.
one more to close this deal out. Put a
You don't
bow
have to
on
do
it.
the one-hit wonderful thing.
Oh, yeah. See, now I don't even remember how it goes. I know it's an A major, but that's about it. Like that, but yeah, so I'll play y'all out now.
All right.
And that's
Wow.
all she
Wonderful.
wrote for this Thursday night. Again, thank you, everybody, for coming out and showing love and showing support and keeping this thing going. Because if it was not for y'all, none of this would be possible. We are fantastic here at TMN. And without y'all, like I say, God only knows where we'd be. So thank you for your love and support. Next week on One Hit Wonderful, we have another great West Coast musician coming to us from San Diego, California. Sandy D. Ingrand will be joining us next
All
week.
right. We love us
It is
some
going to be a
Sandy D.
great go of it. So have a great rest of your night, one and all. Take care. May God richly bless. We love you.
Bye,
Take care.
everybody.
Thanks, everyone.